Happy Reaction Monday, everybody. Welcome into another week of Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you as we start a new week. And a week that's probably starting off not so great for some people. But that's what happens in the world of college football sometimes is sometimes you lose. And sometimes you play a game and you kind of walk away and go, in a lot of ways, played pretty well, but for some reason, we didn't win the football game. And I think that's how a lot of Alabama fans felt on Saturday, whether they were at home or whether they were walking out of Bryant-Denny Stadium or what have you, as Alabama fell 23-21 to Oklahoma. And the next 2 weeks just got a lot more interesting. I'll just say that. So on the one hand, I appreciate Alabama taking the L the way that they did, because obviously the conversation surrounding a particular game that is 12 days away, it's going to be a little different now than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, it's taking a new life. Like when you thought all hope was lost. Once we get past the essential, no offense to, Eastern Illinois and Mercer.
Yeah.
2 bye weeks, getting ready for a pretty epic matchup next weekend. But as for you, when Alabama and Oklahoma play, I think you may need to just stay at home from now on.
Yeah, it's a trend now. We have a 2-year sample size, and at least they're getting better. How about that?
It's closer.
They're getting better each time that I attend this game, because fortunately you didn't score just 3 points. So that was refreshing to see. But, yeah, let's get into it because Alabama, again, as I said, they fell to Oklahoma 23-21, losing at home for the first time, believe it or not, under Kalen DeBoer. Their first loss at home since they lost to Texas back in 2023, which, yes, I was at that game as well. So the last 2 times that Alabama has lost in Bryant-Denny Stadium, I have been in attendance. So that's not – I'm sorry, everybody. I let everybody down, and I hate that, and I apologize. But, the reality of this game is this is a game that Alabama, in some factors of the game, absolutely dominated it. But in a lot of the areas that matter or that can swing the momentum the most, the mistakes just added up for Alabama, and unfortunately, they were too much to overcome at the end of the day. And there's really 5 or 6 plays when you go back and look at this game that you could easily point to and go, that's why Alabama lost to Oklahoma on Saturday. And we'll go through them right now, because when you have this collection of mistakes, and especially when you're playing a team, Oklahoma's a good football team, right? I mean, they're a team that we're going to see in the top 10 of the playoff rankings next week, or tomorrow, actually, when the rankings come out. But this is going to be a team that, if they beat Missouri and LSU in the season, they're going to be in the college football playoff. So while, I don't think you feel bad about it in the sense of the quality of opponent that you lost to isn't bad, but then you look at what you should have done and what the score probably should have been against an opponent of that caliber, and you go, man, all right, that's where the disappointment sets in, because this is a game that Alabama, you look back and you go, man, they probably should have won it by double digits, but they didn't, and the reasons why are – you start off the game, you get the ball on offense, you go and you have a short drive, have to punt the ball away, have terrible coverage on the punt, sets up a short field for Oklahoma. That gave them 3 points. A little bit later on in the first half, Ty Simpson, you're driving the ball, you got it about to be in the red zone, you throw a pick 6. It's now 10-0, and that's 10 points that you've spotted Oklahoma already. So the first 10 points of the game, thank you, Alabama. Then a little bit later in the first half, you force a punt, have an opportunity to get the ball back, shift the momentum a little bit. Ryan Williams is back there. Let's see if he can do something explosive.
Oh, he did.
He did. He fumbles the football, and Oklahoma takes over, and 2 plays later, John Mateer runs it in for a 20-yard touchdown. So that's now 17 points that have been spotted to Oklahoma because of either a turnover or a special teams miscue by Alabama. Then before halftime, you miss a 36-yard field goal. So that's certainly not helping, because now you're cutting into your scoring ability. And then obviously at the end of the third quarter, you have Ty Simpson, his 5th straight game now with a fumble. And that then sets up another Oklahoma field goal. And right there, you have 20 of Oklahoma's 23 points that were either given to them directly by a turnover or where they were set up with a short field and able to go and capitalize off of an Alabama mistake. Oklahoma's longest drive of the game on Saturday was 41 yards. And it was their drive after halftime, immediately to start the third quarter. That was the longest drive Oklahoma had the entire day, 41 yards. And it led to a 52-yard field goal, which, great kick. But I think if you're a defense and you go, hey, if the worst we did all day was make them kick a 52-yard field goal, that was a pretty good day for the defense. And it was. It's just unfortunate that you had too many costly turnovers on special teams and on offense to really make it count. And this is now, the last couple of games, I think, you've started to see with Ty, there's been some problems. He's holding on to the ball a little bit too long, and you heard Kalen DeBoer address that after the game. But it feels like these are, the turnovers when they have happened. There have been few and far between, but when they have happened, they've typically come at inopportune times. And either it's stalling a drive for Alabama. I mean, you go back to, the LSU game a couple of weeks ago, and that was in an opportunity where you're like, all right, if Alabama can go and complete this drive, they're going to put this game away. They're going to essentially kill the will of this LSU football team. They fumble the football, and LSU has a chance to go and tie the football game in the fourth quarter because of a turnover. And you were able to get away with that one, but unfortunately you had 3 turnovers on Saturday, and you had opportunities as a defense to turn the ball over. You had a drop pick 6 from Justin Jefferson. You had another opportunity. Nakai Hill Green dropped an interception late. That would have had to been a great play. But again, you just start to see where the margins for this team seem to be very, very thin. And when all of those things aren't going your way, it's going to be hard to find ways to win, because when all of those things are going your way, you're still kind of winning these close, dogfight type games.
Yeah, and I think this was the first time, at least the past couple games, where the breaks weren't necessarily falling your way. Because defensively, you did everything you were supposed to do defensively. Like, you did everything to make it difficult for Oklahoma to find ways to score, sustain drives. It was, man, now we got to be back on the field because of a turnover, because our offense didn't necessarily carry the weight. Now, this was the first time that Ty Simpson, he looked human. He really did. And against a great Oklahoma defense, yeah, the numbers tell you that he threw for 300 and some yards, but the biggest question mark we were having coming into the past couple weeks, is where's the run game? And there were moments where it was effective, but overall, you still couldn't get over that hurdle of having some true sustained success on the run game, and turnovers were killing you. The turnovers, they were brutal, because when you look at the stat sheet, you hold Oklahoma to, they were 3 of 13 on third down. They barely had 200 yards of total offense. In any other game, that is a winning recipe. You can't draw it up any better than that. But then you look at those hidden yardages of, they had short fields because of the turnovers. Mm-hmm. It just started to mount up, and Alabama wasn't able to recover. And it's, in the grand scheme of it all, the goals that you still have are in front of you. It's just now you got to take the hard way. You got to take the hard route to get to them. And it just feels uncomfortable because of just how bad it looked. Because it's, oh man, we can't make these mistakes in Jordan-Hare and expect to think that Auburn's not going to pull off an upset. And then now with Auburn starting to feel like, hey, we got rid of Hugh Freeze, let the chips fall where they may. They have some momentum. And now it makes that Iron Bowl matchup next week a little bit more interesting. And again, no offense to the opponents that they're facing this weekend, but everybody knows what the real deal is, and it's 2 weeks from now. But I think from Saturday, one of my biggest takeaways is this is one of the, and kind of no offense to Kalen DeBoer, but Alabama hasn't been able to finish, and that's kind of been the theme for the past 2 years of, the plays that we were so used to them making for so long, when it became just a dog fight or like a fist fight, a boxing match. Now they're getting knockout blows on the other side. Now the other team is starting to be a recipient of some of those knockout shots. But like you said, even last year against Oklahoma, they jumped on you quick and it was more of a ground and pound attack. But this year, it was Alabama is beating Alabama, and Oklahoma gets to be the recipient of the mistakes that Alabama's making.
Yeah, and that's not to take anything away from what Oklahoma did defensively, because right they made the plays when they needed to be made, and again it felt almost like watching the Oklahoma defense. Right, it felt like kind of watching the Alabama defense for a lot of the season in terms of, okay, yeah, they'll give up the big plays. They might look at the box score and go, man, they kind of gave up a decent chunk of yardage today, but you're creating the turnovers. You're getting those key stops, whether it's in the red zone or creating a turnover on special teams. Getting a pick six, things like that. That you go back and look at games for Alabama this year, and you go, man, that was kind of the difference in a lot of those matchups. And so it was just kind of unique to be on the other side of that now. If you're the Alabama offense, and I think similar to, I kind of look at it similar to what we said about Auburn going into the Vanderbilt game, right? It's, what happens when, you figure out, what happens if the defense has an off day, right? What if they're not as dominant as they have been all throughout? Well, you can still have a good day offensively, but when the defense takes a step back, ultimately that held you back from getting a victory against Vanderbilt. And I think now, like in this game for Alabama, it's, well, what happened if you did have a bad game with turnovers? What happens if you do have a game where Ty Simpson doesn't make the hero throw and save you in miraculous fashion on third down late in the game? Well, we found out you're going to lose. And that's exactly what happened on Saturday. So Alabama, like Damian said, still has a lot to look forward to this season, but you're going to have to get through Auburn in the Iron Bowl to make that happen. So a lot to get into there. But let's hear from Kalen DeBoer quickly, some of his comments after the game. So quickly, this is his recap really quickly of the loss and just Alabama missing some opportunities and key moments in that game.
Really disappointed in the outcome, and that we played a lot of great snaps out there, but the turnover battle obviously got killed there, and that became the game. And we've done a great job of taking care of it. We've done a good job of taking it off of teams, and I think probably 17 points coming off of turnovers and the short field at the beginning where they got a field goal on the punt return. So, we missed our opportunities for sure, and that's what hurt so much. I have no doubt about how to respond, but, the guys are disappointed and frustrated about how this ended up here, because that's the moment we're in.
So there you go. That's his kind of quick thoughts after the game and the loss. Alabama, too many missed opportunities on Saturday against Oklahoma. And let's also hear this. This is Kalen DeBoer talking about, after the game, Ty Simpson and kind of that streak I was talking about of losing fumbles and what he needs to see from Ty Simpson to correct that moving forward.
With the pressure that they brought, he's got to get rid of it and be okay with throwing it away. It just, you can only hold on so long, and with the blitz they had, you're going to get overwhelmed and outnumbered. And so you just got to understand the situation. I know it's third down, and he wants to stay on the field, but you just got to understand, your defense is playing pretty good too, and you just got to live with punting once in a while.
So there you go. Got to get rid of the ball if you're Ty Simpson and some of those opportunities. And he spoke with the media as well after the game and, basically echoed those sentiments of, you can tell, though, there's a little bit of that trying to play hero. And, when you don't have a run game, right, that's kind of the situation that you find yourself in. And unfortunately, you play with fire like we've talked about with Alabama, and it is going to come back to bite you at sometimes. And it seemed to do that on Saturday. But what does lie ahead for Alabama? Let's say they're able to get past Auburn in the Iron Bowl. What is the likelihood that they're going to be in the college football playoff? What has to happen for them to be in Atlanta for the SEC championship? We'll break it all down for you. The path ahead for Alabama. Is it all doom and gloom, or are things actually still looking pretty good for the Crimson Tide? We'll break it down next here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on a Reaction Monday. Conrad and Damien here with you, recapping Alabama, their loss to Oklahoma over the weekend. So now Alabama, 2 losses on the season, and crunch time coming up as 2 games left, and you can't lose either of them. Otherwise, you can kiss the college football playoff goodbye, and you will enter a very, very interesting offseason of Alabama football if that is how it ultimately goes. But we talked about it, right? Even after the loss, you are still in play for all of the goals, everything you wanted to accomplish. Much like, I know it's a little different, but, Ohio State losing to Michigan last year at the end. That was a team I think a lot of people thought limping into the college football playoff. Man, what are they going to really even have to play for? Turned it on, and they played the best football of their season at the very end and the most important time, and they were national champions. So maybe Alabama can follow in those footsteps. But how likely is it that Alabama even gets to the college football playoff? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you found yourself trying to do the math over the weekend. So we will find out again tomorrow. You'll have the latest edition of the college football playoff rankings. And I think the interesting thing to watch for here with Alabama is where are they in relation to Notre Dame? Are they put in front of Notre Dame? Are they right behind Notre Dame? Is Notre Dame ahead of maybe Alabama and Oklahoma? That's what I'm going to be very fascinated to see, because Notre Dame, if I was making the argument for Notre Dame, they have 2 high quality losses, right? They lost to Miami and Texas A&M by a combined 4 points. They lost those games at the very beginning of the season, so they haven't lost in a couple of months now. And I think that you could make the argument that, okay, this is a different Notre Dame team than the one we saw earlier in the year. I think then if you're making an argument for Alabama, you go, well, Notre Dame, I know they just beat Pitt, but Pitt's not going to be ranked anymore. Notre Dame's going to have 1 ranked win over USC. Alabama's going to have most likely 4, assuming Missouri jumps back into the rankings tonight. So, it's going to be interesting to see where that lays, and I think that'll give us a better picture of what's going on for Alabama. But right now, according to ESPN and their college football playoff predictor, they give Alabama a 91% chance of making the college football play as it stands right now. Again, if you beat Auburn and you beat East Illinois State, that number is around 96% chance to make the college football playoff. And I find it hard to believe that a 10-2 team in the SEC wouldn't make the playoff. Now, unfortunately, Vanderbilt may find themselves in that situation if everything else stays put. But this year's been crazy, so not everything's going to stay the way that it is. I certainly don't think. But if you win your next 2 games, you get to 10-2, you're going to have a really, really good shot of making the college football playoff. Now, the question is, would you also make the SEC championship game if you're Alabama? Because there's a lot of scenarios out there, and there's been a lot of confusion over what has to happen for certain teams to get into the college football playoff. Shout out to Cole Kubelik. Thought he did a good job of laying out a lot of that on Twitter yesterday. If you missed that, I'm sure he'll dive into it coming up on Mac and Q. But I thought he did a good little quick summary of what has to happen for certain teams. But for just Alabama that we're worried about here, so if either of these 2 things happen, they're automatically in Atlanta. If you beat Auburn and Texas A&M loses to Texas, or Ole Miss loses to Mississippi State, if either one of those things happens, you're automatically in with a win over Auburn. Now, if those things don't happen, which are, I think it's fair to say A&M and Ole Miss would both be favored in those games right now, some of the other things that would have to happen. Now, if you're Alabama and you don't want to go to Atlanta, you need Texas A&M to beat Texas, Ole Miss to beat Mississippi State, Arkansas to beat Missouri, Kentucky to beat Vanderbilt, and Florida to beat Tennessee. That is all the things that would have to happen for Alabama to not go to Atlanta if they beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. I'm going to just go out and say this. Those things are not all going to happen.
You're right. There's a lot.
Especially Kentucky and that one's kind of...
Yeah.
That's probably the hardest one to see happening. But all those things would have to happen to keep Alabama out of the SEC championship game. But then, of course, the question comes into, well, do you even want to play in the championship game? Because what if you lose and then you're 10-3? Is that going to knock you out of the college football playoff?
You're not going to get punished for that.
No, well, and I saw some people making a great point over the weekend is, let's say that scenario did happen. The very next day, Greg Sankey's holding a press conference and probably announcing that they're not having a SEC championship game anymore.
Right.
Well, seriously, because at that point they're going to say, so
Yeah.
we're being penalized for having our two best teams play each other in a conference title game. Why would we ever do that again?
Right. No, it's essentially SMU Clemson last year. It's the same thing that would happen where you're not going to punish a team for handling their business in the regular season and they end up losing in the conference championship game. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, and that's why I said, initially the loss sucks. Like, it really does. Like, it's, we could have handled our business, been in the SEC championship, and whether win or lose, we're going to the college football playoffs. Like, again, the goals that you set at the beginning of the season are still up for grabs. It's just you're going to have to finish November extremely strong, and you're taking the difficult route to get there. And again, like you look at just the SEC as a whole, and the college football playoff discussion, where now Georgia presumably is going to have just one loss, and yet not play for the SEC title, but they're going to find themselves in the college football playoff. Now Vanderbilt's kind of in that no man's land where, yeah, we have 2 losses, but okay, now Ole Miss, they're going to be, again, presumably they're not going to lose the game. They're going to go and find themselves in the college football playoff without playing in the SEC championship. Vanderbilt's kind of in that dead spot of, well, we kind of need one of these teams to lose to kind of ensure that we get in there, but also they have to go through Tennessee. They got to go play Tennessee, and they got to beat Kentucky. So it's the amount of teams that the SEC is going to get in is still up for grabs. But for the team here in Alabama, as long as you handle your business, you're going to be there. And give or take, whether you win the SEC title or not, of course you would like to, but you still have a goal of playing for a national title. You still have a chance of playing for a national title. You just got to take the rough road.
Yes. Yeah, you certainly do. And look, do I think that this Alabama team is winning a national championship? No, I do not. But in the scenario of, yes, you still technically are going to be alive to play for those things. And, yeah, but I mean, you're going to have to win your games. And the good news is that unlike last year, right, you're not in a situation right now, barring, some crazy results on the results or playoff rankings tomorrow, you're not in a situation where you necessarily need help from other teams. You still control your own destiny, essentially. You win your next 2 games, and everything's probably going to take care of itself. But I would say this: you don't want to go to Atlanta and let's say you're playing Texas A&M and lose that game by 30 points. I don't think that would bode well for you. I know somebody asked Mac Rhodes last week on the ranking show or kind of in their Q&A session after that, and he came out and said that they view the making your conference title game, that is not a punishment for losing that unless you get blown out. So, again, if you're Alabama, you get to Atlanta, you win or you lose a close game, you're going to be just fine. But, again, don't open yourself up to where you're having to hope that somebody else lost or, I really hope that, Texas Tech and Georgia Tech are winning their conferences and we're not, in a debate against an at-large ACC and an Alabama-type team. Again, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. A lot of drama, obviously, going into the Iron Bowl. But again, I'll run through it really quickly. If you're Alabama, you beat Auburn. If Ole Miss or Texas A&M lose their rivalry games, then you're automatically in, and it's going to kind of mess up a little bit of who you're going to play. But you are going to secure your spot in the playoff. And then alongside that, if Vanderbilt beats Kentucky, Missouri beats Arkansas, some of these games that we expect, how we know how they're going to go, you're going to be in Atlanta because that's not going to help the strength of schedule argument. Because I know some people were wondering, well, how could Georgia get in over Alabama with the head-to-head? But if you have multiple one-loss teams, the head-to-head goes away, and it goes to strength of schedule record. And in that situation, Alabama would need the better teams to win because it helps their strength of schedule over Georgia's. So that's the situation there for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But we want to hear from you, 205-834-9450. A lot of you chiming in with your thoughts on the Alabama-Oklahoma game, what's ahead for the Crimson Tide. And we got to get some other happenings around the college football weekend as well, because just when you thought the Texas A&M hadn't changed, maybe this is just the team for the Aggies that's going to be able to make all of their dreams come true. It certainly seemed that way on Saturday. A lot to get into here on the remainder of Morning JOX on JOX 94.5. 6:32 here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you tuning in to Morning JOX. Conrad and Damian here with you to get your week started. Of course, McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They'll be with you today from 7 to 10. Then three-man front with you from 10 to 2. And the Paul Feinbaum show after that, as there is just so much to get to in the world of college football going on around this weekend. Before we get to some of the other happenings this weekend, though, did want to get to some of your texts on the Courtesy GMC text line, because a lot of you have been chiming in this morning with your thoughts on the Alabama loss and what's next for the Crimson Tide. Lewis, he chimes in this morning. He says 3 turnovers resulting in 17 points and awful special teams, and you only lost by 2. Clean it up and let's move forward. At least we know it's not the magic shirt. Yeah, that was, I guess, the black hoodie maybe has lost a little bit of its luster now. So we'll see if he continues to wear it or not. Let's see, Jamie chiming in. He says, what happened to Alabama on Saturday could have happened at any point over the last 5 or 6 weeks. There's a distinct issue with the offense, with a running game or lack thereof, and the offensive line. The defensive line has gotten better. We have very little offensive weapons as far as Ryan Williams. He's really not that good at all. I think he is sort of a coward as far as being in the tough situations. I've watched that kid play. He's not very good when it counts. Let's see. I was about to say, he can't be a tough, gritty, every down player for Alabama, and that should be the MO of this entire football team. Okay, that was a lot. Okay. I get
it.
I get the frustrations. Do I think Ryan Williams is very talented? Yes.
1000%.
Do I think he has lived up to that? Absolutely not.
Fair assessment.
I think it's fair to say you have not gotten your whatever your money's worth, whatever that investment was in him NIL wise.
Right.
You haven't gotten that. I think that's fair.
100%.
The kid still has talent.
1000%.
Doesn't mean it's going to turn into anything. But and I've just seen a lot of people that say this kid was never good. He's always been good.
That is a lie. Like, that is an absolute lie.
Yeah, he's very talented. It's just between the ears, man. It's a big part of the game. Let's see. This says, you predicted us to lose and then went to the game. I did not predict Alabama to lose, but I did go to the game. Let's see. Somebody texting in. Oh, they're asking about the blocked field goal. No, I know, because I saw some people on the field goal. So the field goal you missed before halftime, some people were asking if, there should have been a penalty called on Oklahoma for jumping over the long snapper. But I forgot who it was. There was a former official that went and kind of cleared it up on social media over the weekend, and it should not have been a penalty because of the way that he was jumping. He wasn't jumping like directly over a defender as much as it was in between the gap of 2 defenders, which is a legal play to do. And so, no, that should have been a penalty, but somebody was, I guess, correcting their text they had sent in over the weekend. Let's see. This one says, Alabama didn't give it away. Oklahoma took it away when it counted. Alabama isn't a mistake-free team 100% of the time. Give credit where it's due. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
1000%. Oklahoma made the plays. They did.
They absolutely did. Do you think that Brent Venables was happy with how their defense played in that game?
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, they created turnover. And that, again, like, they made the plays when they needed to be made. That's what this Alabama defense has, kind of made their living on doing this year. But I don't think they're going to go back and watch the film, and he's going to be telling them they did a great job.
Right. Like, Ty Simpson was carving them up for a period of time. It's just his misses were brutal.
And to be fair, right, another part of it for Oklahoma is you had 3 turnovers. You probably could have had 5, all things considered. You had another interception that was called off with pass interference. You had that weird fumble situation where it ended up actually going out of bounds and benefiting Alabama. Where it moved forward. And that was actually the play right before the pick six, if I remember correctly. So, it could have gotten even a little wilder on that side of things, all things considered. Let's see. Some people coming in talking about Jam Miller, being frustrated with him. And look, I get it. I know a lot of people were saying, well, if we're being told Jam Miller's playing because of his ability to pass protect, Saturday was not a good representation of that because he got bullied. I think he actually, according to PFF, he had the worst grade of any pass protector on the team for Alabama on Saturday, and it was rough.
Yeah, he got mauled on one of those dropbacks.
Yes,
I give him an A for effort, but phew.
Yeah, he got a little bullied there because like this text it says Daniel Hill needs to be the full-time running back. Jam should only get one carry every so often, never back-to-back carries for him or full-time. And I mean Daniel Hill showed something, right? I think you had early in the game he had a 7-yard run. The crowd went wild for a 7-yard run. Like that shows you how bad it's been. And then when he had that 28-yard run, you would have thought Alabama just scored an 80-yard touchdown. People want to see it, and it still just hasn't quite been there for them. Has not quite been there. Let's see. Alan says, man, the real Alabama fans aren't the ones who are whining. The worst game we've seen in over 2 months, and we lost by 2 and had a chance to beat the number 11 team in the country. The upside is we play a good game, and we can handle the ranking. I don't want to hear these fans talking about how good we are when we roll off another win streak. Roll Tide, looking forward to Atlanta.
That's kind of the thing I came away thinking too. It's, for it has been as bad as it was, you still had a chance to win the football game.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what separates like good and great teams. It's, even if we play our C+ game, we're still within a puncher's chance with one of the best teams in the country. So like that's where I'm not as worried. Yeah, there are things that you definitely need to iron out and fix, but the gap is so small of, being good and still find a way to overcome. Because again, we've seen them in the ranked matchups with other teams, and they've been able to overcome that. This is the first time it didn't happen, and you only lost by 2. So you kind of have to look at it from that perspective of, like any other team could have been on the opposite end of that and it would have gotten, skull drug. But in that situation, it was, okay, amongst all of the things that went wrong, you still had a chance to win the football game in the end.
In the wise words of one Hugh Freeze, if you played them 10 times, you'd beat them 9, right?
Yeah, but it was Arkansas on the other side of that, but I get it. You're right. You're close. You were close. Yeah, you were close.
Just thought that was applicable given the situation.
It's fact.
It is. But we'll get back to some of your reaction here coming up in a couple of minutes because there were a couple other things wanted to get to from over the weekend. So the big one, of course, Texas A&M and South Carolina. So South Carolina, they go up 30-3 at halftime. Look, just absolutely nothing going right for Texas A&M. Marcel Reed throws a couple of picks. It's house of horrors for Texas A&M at home against South Carolina, of all things. And so naturally they come out in the second half. You're starting to think, all right, man, if South Carolina, look, if you're just able to go out here, maybe put together one scoring drive in the second half, really put this thing away, you're going to be good to go. Well, unfortunately, when you go up 30-3 at halftime, the only thing that can really go against you is if another team goes like, I don't know, say 28-0 in the second half. Well, that's exactly what Texas A&M did, as they came out on fire. As they went on 3 straight scoring drives in the second half. They scored 21 in the third quarter, score 7 in the fourth quarter, and they get the 31-30 win to stay perfect on the season. And again, one of those games where right after a nice, shiny contract extension for Mike Elko, and you're like, man, this would be a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth after giving him a nice pay raise and making him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. But they find a way to get it done. And again, yes, we can sit here and we can make fun of Texas A&M and for as horrible of a first half as they did have. But again, these are just the kind of things that they're stacking together this year where you look at it and you go, all right, I know I haven't believed in Texas A&M for a long time, but they're now doing the things that I didn't believe they could do, right? You knew they were going to have a game everyone has a game like this. You knew it was going to happen, but you find a way to win. And I would say that's honestly probably one of the better wins they have on the season. And I don't mean that as a shot. Like, legitimately, you found a way to come back from a 27-point deficit at halftime and win a football game in the SEC. I don't care who you're playing. That's incredibly difficult to do. Now, yeah, you can look at the first half and go, okay, well, maybe there's some vulnerabilities there. I think that's fair as well. But you come back 28-0 in the second half, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, you got caught sleepwalking in the first half.
Yep.
Is the usual 11 o'clock slate, that early morning kickoff, and you're being lackadaisical. Like, you're just going through the motions. And when they tightened up, they showed that they are one of the best teams in college football. And it's something that, like you said, it's one of those things that we poke fun at Texas A&M, but when you look at it, this is one of the better teams in college football, and they went out there and proved it. Now, you can't afford to, keep doing this. Now, granted, Sanford's going through a little bit of a transition. I think Texas A&M should be able to handle their business. But you go out there and mess around with your big brother in Texas, and then all of a sudden you're looking real goofy there at the end of the season. But no, like a lot of credit to Marcel Reed too, because the first half was kind of what I had been waiting on for Marcel Reed. Of right when I start to believe in him, this is what I get. And then the second half, that's the Marcel Reed I had been waiting to see. It's just can you finally do it for 4 full quarters? It's all I'm asking, because the defense is what you've been hanging your hat on, and that was the first time they had truly been hit in the mouth by South Carolina. And then they turned up the second half, and it's like, okay, this is what great teams do. Like they don't look at they coaches tell you all the time, and it sounds cliche. At second half, it's 0-0, and that's the mindset that they went out there with, and they played to that level. So as much as I would want to just punch down on them, that was a valiant effort for Texas A&M, and there's a reason why they're sitting undefeated right now, looking like one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, so Texas A&M with that win, they're going to the college football playoff. That's set in stone now. It's just a question of, can they finish the season 12-0 and potentially win their first SEC championship on top of that. So big comeback there for the Aggies. Georgia, they continue to dominate Texas. Texas just absolutely doesn't know what to do against the Bulldogs as Georgia wins 35-10. Again, we'll see if Texas beats A&M. Maybe that makes things interesting if there's a lot of other chaos around it. But essentially, Texas's season comes to an end there in terms of their college football playoff hopes as they get dominated by Georgia. And you have Ole Miss. Florida gave them a good fight.
They did.
That was a great game for the first, half, a little bit over the first half. But Florida not able to hang on there. Ole Miss, they score 14 in the second half and in the fourth quarter specifically. And that gives them the 34-24 victory there over potentially Lane Kiffin's future employer. And then you had LSU.
No, I'm not going to do not, no, absolutely not. Don't be disrespectful.
Then why did he not come out after the win yesterday and say that he's staying at Ole Miss?
Man, we ain't got to do all that. We'll talk about that at the end of the season. No.
Well, obviously he's at least entertaining the idea. Otherwise he would have.
I mean, listen, he's just checking the temperature. He handled business, brother. He handled business. He looked across and was like, man, I can't fix DJ Lagway. Why would I go down there and try to do that? Nah.
No, you just take Trinidad Chambliss with you. You're good to go.
He's got it made, man.
He certainly does. So, a wild weekend there in the SEC. A lot going on. A lot still to come here in the final 2 weeks of it all. But we want to hear from you again, 205-834-9450. More of your thoughts on Alabama, their loss to Oklahoma, and the rest of a crazy weekend in the SEC. That's where we'll go next. The Courtesy GMC text line right here on JOX. 6:50 here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you tuning in to Morning Jocks as we wrap things up here with your reaction, your calls and text on the college football weekend. But don't want Auburn fans to leave empty-handed because you did have a big opportunity over the weekend as your football team was on bye, but basketball taking on Houston yesterday in Birmingham, and it was a fantastic game. Unfortunately, Auburn comes up just a little short as they lose 73-72. You had opportunity there late with Pettiford there to try to win the game. I know Stephen Pearl upset about no call there at the end, and Auburn not getting a chance to win it at the charity stripe. Again, I think, yes, you would have liked to win the game, but this early on in the season, it's similar to the Purdue game for Alabama, right? The fact that you were competitive in that game, especially for Auburn, right, with a little bit of uncertainty coming in with the coaching change and all that stuff, I think you'd rather win, but a 1-point loss to Houston early in the season, no one's going to knock you for that. And that's the kind of experience that's going to help you out come postseason play there. So I'm sure a lot of you had a great time there enjoying that atmosphere yesterday here in Birmingham. But quickly, let's get to the phone lines where Larry has been waiting patiently, wants to ask some questions about Alabama. How we doing, Larry?
Good morning, guys. Always listen. Always love y'all's opinions. But question number one, who is Oklahoma's losses to? I know one was to Texas. Who was the other one to?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, that's right. It slipped my mind. Guys, this is just an opinion. Everybody's got a different perspective, but what I see in Venables as a coach, when he walked on that field in a week to prepare for Bama, he said, "We lose this game, guys, we're out of it." And he used that as that's just my opinion. His defense, they were, 17 points off turnovers, and our offensive tackles are getting beat off the ends every game. So many times it's pathetic, in my opinion, when we got these big guys and they're just getting beat, and the type defense that they play and they shoot the gaps consistently. And if you think Oklahoma does it, wait till we go to Jordan-Hare, guys. That's all I'm going to say. Enjoy the show every day. Take care.
I appreciate the call there, Larry. Yeah, it's certainly not going to be easy going and taking on Auburn there in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Let's go to Doug real quick, get his thoughts this morning. How we doing, Doug?
I'm doing well, thanks, y'all. I'm, of course, frustrated about the protection for tying. It's exposing for holding the ball too long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more frustrated with the tackling that Alabama did this weekend a lot of times. Can't say every time. But, if you make contact with the guy, you should be trying to wrap him up, is my opinion. Now, if the guy jukes you out and you totally miss and you're still diving for him trying to get it, at least you try. But this trying to hit guys and knock them down with your shoulder instead of wrapping him up and tackling him, I noticed that more than once during this game, and that's more frustrating to me than anything. Thanks, guys, and I appreciate it. That's just my opinion for what it's worth.
Hey, no, we appreciate you chiming in with that this morning, Doug. And no, I mean, there's certainly times where, I thought Oklahoma did a really good job of, guys, after first contact, right? Even if they're going down, they're dragging a guy for 2 yards, right? They're getting those extra little yards. I think it's fair to say you haven't seen that from Alabama as much this year. I mean, that's kind of been one of the complaints of the running game is, can you just drag a guy for 3 yards? Like, they can't even do that consistently. So, no, I think it's a fair point. And I do think the missed tackles, that has gotten better because that was a bigger problem earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. But there are certainly some times where it feels like, maybe the guy making the tackle isn't the toughest guy out there on the field. Let's see. I'm confused. Is that like an AI text that came in? I'm so confused. This says Alabama's putting too much on Ty Simpson. Yeah, and I think it's fair that, again, I go back to the last 3 games where he just hasn't looked like the Ty Simpson you had earlier in the year, and I think it's, he understands, right? If he isn't perfect, that the offense is going to struggle at times, and that weighs on you after a while because early in the season the running game's going to get better, just hang on until we get there. Well, I think now it's pretty apparent that it's just not really going to get there, and Alabama's going to win or lose based on Ty Simpson and his right arm. Let's see. Rick from Helena. Bama has been failing upward since the Vandy game, and they finally failed down. This is a 7-5 team that has caught every lucky break along the way. They will not beat Auburn.
Stop.
They won't beat them, Damian.
Stop.
They're not going to do it. Wayne says, y'all are some spin doctors this morning. War damn, Alabama can't make the playoff.
Okay.
I think a lot of you don't understand that you lost by 2 to another playoff team on Saturday. That's really not that bad in the grand scheme of things. We're back tomorrow at 6. Mac and Cube is